Hello, everyone. I'm Candid Frank Stanisci of CFL Talk. Welcome to the Spanglish World Network on Zingo TV, channel 250. Please remember to download the Zingo TV app at the respective app stores for iOS and Android devices. While you download the app, make sure you rate and leave a comment. Both apps are absolutely free. Zingo TV is available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire and Fire TV sticks, Roku and Roku sticks, and also on all smart TVs 2016 forward. Now on CFL Talk, joining me is David Morassutti, and joining us soon, hopefully, will be Aaron William Freeland. Hello, David.
How you doing, Frank?
Fantastic. I got to tell you, in the hockey show, I got real emotional talking about, the CFL and the situation that they're in. We had a conversation the last couple of weeks, and now we're hearing that it's quite possible. In fact, the reality may be that the league won't start till Labor Day. Somehow that sounds familiar.
Yeah, and I just saw Justin Dunk reported earlier that the CFL is talking with the federal government about financial aid. I'm just like, oh no, oh no. When we had Bill Manning on a few weeks ago, it felt like the tone was totally different. I mean, look, Bill, his job is. We know his job is to make sure that things are, running properly for the Argonauts, and he's not going to, douse any water on the flames of what the season outlook is. But since we've had him on, this has taken a very bad turn from the CFL is making every attempt to have a season two. The CFL is looking to start at this time. They're looking for money. They're asking players to take pay cuts, and I'm just like, oh, this is not good.
You do remember the conversation I've had the last couple of weeks. You do remember me asking you to do the math to Labor Day.
You're also asking me to do math, so that's the first problem right there.
Okay. Well, anyway. I told you what the math was. I said, what was it, 3 months? I think it was 3 months was the math that I did.
Yeah.
So if you work back from the end of November, end of October, end of September, then the beginning of September, the season starts, and you've got a season of, we talked about 10 games, 8 to 10 games, and that throws in the playoffs as well. And who doesn't think that it wouldn't be a big deal to have a season that starts on Labor Day? We gave all the rationale last week, right? We gave the rationale. In some circles, in some people's minds, the season anyway doesn't start till Labor Day. The rosters don't really start till Labor Day. Before Labor Day, it's mix and match and figure this out. And then as of Labor Day, contracts kick in, the seriousness of playing for the team. You're on the team, you're going to get paid for the rest of the year. And so therefore, at least it's a natural beginning based on history, which is, which is okay. And David, honestly, the choices being no season or one that starts in September.
This is the tough part, because it's like when we were thinking about the math and we were thinking about how long the season would have to be if it started in September. I'm of the opinion that the CFL needs to play this year, and a lot of people have been of the opinion, even those with the ties to the XFL, which has been another disaster if you've been looking at all the reports and all the debate the last few weeks. There has, honestly, if there isn't a season, how do you expect that? How does the CFL expect things to get better going forward? Because I just don't see it.
There's if you remember, and for the folks now that if they're watching this, we discussed this all last week, so I'll try to abbreviate it a little more than do the whole show on this subject, because really, we said last week, and I still believe that the Labor Day beginning is a good one. I believe they can start. And if you remember last week what I talked about, I'd been trying to get an appointment to get a jab, actually two, because AstraZeneca, you take two.
Mhm.
And I finally got an appointment up here in Simcoe, and my appointment is for May 4th. May the 4th be with you. And then my second jab is August 2/4 weekend, or August 2/4. It's a Tuesday. So my math in that regard is they say it takes about a week, 10 days for the vaccine to take effect, right? To end up with the full effect because you take the second one. So the first one that you take, I'll be taking it using myself as an example, May 4th. So at least by the end of May, the beginning of June, I should be um, able to interact with people. What they're saying about the vaccine is you don't pass it on once you have the vaccine. That's one of the good things about the vaccine. All of a sudden, you're not a transmitter of the virus, right? Do we?
I've heard that you can still transmit it. It's more so the likelihood might not be as high,
Right.
and the symptoms and what you get. Really, the main point of the vaccine is to try to keep people out of the ICUs and out of the hospitals. That's what I've been
All right.
told
All
about
right.
this whole thing, which
Me,
is still good. That's the whole point. You're not
I'll
going.
I'll
Yeah.
yield to you. Go ahead.
Like what you're trying to what they're trying to do right now, what the government's trying to do is the issue right now is there's too many people in ICU beds right now, and they're
Right.
really struggling with those numbers. So the reason why they're telling people to get the vaccines is you get the vaccine, your likelihood of being in an ICU or having those really bad symptoms of COVID-19 or even the variants, which have become a really big problem, significantly decrease.
Right.
That's the main point. They say that,
Right.
especially with the variants, you still can likely transmit it, but it's you're protecting yourself from potentially harmful effects of this virus.
All right. So now I'll move on to the point that I'd like to make, and that is that by then, the vast majority of Canadians will be vaccinated. By the time the season starts, is what I'm talking about. So we're talking about June. I think they said they're opening the vaccine to anybody who wants it. A. B. The question that I have, and I don't remember if we discussed it last week. Will there be a treatment to people who've had the vaccine have a preference to go to live sporting events? Will the Ontario government or the federal government, depending which has the say or the final say, go with this vaccine passport idea so that if you want to socialize, get the vaccine? If that's the case, David, and let's say by the middle of August, everybody at least has their first shot, right? Then what we're talking about is events and businesses opening up for business, whether it be on a percentile like we've seen and witnessed in the United States, or will it be full blown? We're opening up. That's the question, right?
Yeah, I think the two complications to it is in the United States, many of the people who've gotten the vaccine have gotten both jabs. As you
Right.
said, you're getting your first one May 4th. Your second one's not coming until August. That's
24th.
the
That's the end of.
that's the big problem too, because I'm not exactly sure on the science between having the one shot versus the second shot, but I've
Can I
always
can I
been.
share my knowledge about that with you?
Yep, go ahead, please.
65%. It's 95, 98 when you get both.
Hmm.
It's 65%. But from what I've heard, and again, I'm not an expert, but I do note that the experts don't always agree 100%. What I've heard is that if you get the vaccine, I've heard that the transmission is less. and not an issue like it is if you don't. So
Mhm.
that's one of the motivations to get the first dose. So that immediate first dose keeps you out of the hospital. It does that. The other one's basically a tune-up, and it enhances the effectiveness, you know, of the vaccine. So, the efficacious nature of the vaccine, a word I didn't know until last year, or at least I didn't think I knew. But anyway, so basically that's the way I see it. Now, if we are to consider the CFL coming back with fans, and if they can come back with as many fans as the provinces allow places to open up, and all the fans that can go to the game that aren't afraid not to go to the game, and they all go, and the economy of the Canadian Football League at least can be sort of like it was before, minus the people that are afraid to interact, because there is that group of people. Let's be real here. Again, though, I still think, like I said many, many weeks ago, I still think there's going to be a lot of people who are going to go wherever they can possibly go at the beginning of the doors opening. You know what I'm saying? It's like Boxing Day for sports fans. It'll be Boxing Day for sports fans, if you know what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
So the numbers might be good. The ones that don't want to come to the games, I hope to go. The ones that don't want to or are afraid to, I think will be outnumbered by those that are going to go, well, you know what? I want to go to a sporting event. I want to go to a live one.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's going to be a situation where whatever sporting events are taking place at that time, there's going to be a lot of people wanting to be a part of it. And then you've also got concerts, any kind of show, even going out to dinner is going to be, a treat. And, I mean, it's going to bring new meaning to date night, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, no. I mean, it's been for us, for you and I, Frank. It's been since what? Uh, October 2019 since we've been at BMO Field
The
for an
last
Argo game.
game of the season.
The last game of the season. It's been since a sporting event for me. I wonder if that was the last sporting event. That might have been the last sporting event. This is the problem. I don't even remember the last sporting event I went to.
I
Right.
went to the Hamilton playoff game. I went to the Grey Cup. Yeah. So I did the CFL thing to the end live. I can say this. I don't know why, but right now thinking about it, I remember going. I think I remember where it was. It was in. Let's see. That one was in. I'm confused now. It was in Alberta. I guarantee you that.
It was in
Calgary, right?
It was in
Yeah,
Calgary.
it was in Calgary.
Yeah.
That's how long it's been. So it was in Calgary. I remember being in Calgary. I remember the game. I remember the Grey Cup Festival. I remember all the interviews. But I also, if you remember, in I think it was February, the first week or the last week of January, I went to here near where I live, to Blue Mountain, to watch in Hollywood, to interview all the changes that were taking place. It was prior to the draft, and it was in the middle of free agency, or free agency just hadn't started yet. No, free agency had started, because I think there were new players that were already with teams. And I had a chance to interview Scott Milanovich, who was the coach of the Edmonton at the time, the other name, the Edmonton team. And he was the coach for almost 2 years, a year and a half. And he has since departed. So I had a chance to do the interviews of all the different coaches. So my passion for the CFL stopped late in the off season, because it was March and February. Well, the end of January is when I became aware of the virus. February is when I understood it was a terrible thing. and nobody was saying anything. Nobody really knew what was going on. I remember posting it on Facebook. There's a killer out there, guys. And, a lot of people thought I was a little bit crazy. But I wasn't. And I wasn't because I was paying attention, not because of any brilliance or anything. I'm paying attention to the quiet news, not the rabble-rousing news, just the quiet news. By the way, there's they thought of it as a problem in China, and they didn't know what it was, and so that was the last time I went to anything to do with sports in person, right? And since then, I've had the opportunity to, to interact with some of the players, not many, not, some, respecting social distancing. Some of the charitable work like Campbell did, right? So it's been there. That was a big deal. Just being a part of something that the Argos were doing and interviewing them. It was a big deal outside in a parking lot, socially distant, wearing a mask. He was wearing a mask. Everybody else around us were wearing masks. We're all wearing masks. Good news is nothing happened. So, and the reason I know that is because nothing happened, and it's been a while. So if anything was going to happen, it would have shown up a while ago. So I'm hoping that we get a chance to build on that. I'm disappointed that you sound very disappointed in the situation. We can expand on the information that you've brought to the show today. That is a basic. Here we go again, which is the Blue Jays. Blue Jays. The CFL. Unlike the Blue Jays and hockey, is having trouble getting untracked. And so, can you give me the logic in your mind as to why you feel there won't be a season, even though I know the obvious answer? I just want to hear it in your own words.
So I'm still holding out hope for a season, but the reason why I would think that we're leaning towards a path where there isn't a season is you're seeing how many CFL players are retiring.
Right.
You are seeing. I'm not seeing many CFL players even standing up really to say that they're excited for a season because they have absolutely no idea what's going on. And I've just everything I've been hearing with, cases going up, and then cases will eventually go down as more people get vaccinated. I understand that part. But when I continue to hear that the CFL hasn't declared that they will have a season, even if fans aren't a part of the conversation, because we've heard quite often that the CFL constantly talking about fans being in the stands. And
Absolutely.
I even asked Bill Manning, how much is the CFL really willing considering a season if fans are not a part of the equation? Didn't really get much of a concrete answer on that one. Like I wanted to know how much was the CFL willing to invest to have a season if fans weren't going to be there, because every other sports league I have seen has made an attempt, an honest attempt, and we've seen an attempt. But I don't know if we've seen an honest attempt for the owners to say, you know what, we just need to get on the field. We just need our product to be out there so people can watch it, rather than, well, we're not getting the fans. We don't want to go through the financial heartbreak, which I understand that, but I also understand that you're not making money either way. So I don't see the value of not having a season.
Okay. Now we talked. I'm really okay. So we'll see what happens. Now this business with the XFL and the CFL, or do you want to talk? Well, we'll talk about the combine after.
Yeah.
This business with the XFL and the CFL. You know me. I like to write stuff, and I sort of, envy what you do. You're a writer. You're a great writer. You're a trained writer. I love what you do. I enjoy reading what you put together, all your offerings, and You know, it's going to be harder and harder for me to keep up with you because I'm sure you're going to get real busy and I'm going to get real old. So what I do know is I enjoy writing about stuff because I like to hear what people have to say. It's not just about me putting my view out there. I want to hear from other people. You know, it'd be great if people called in here. I wouldn't mind talking to them. But
Yeah.
we all know a lot of times that ends up going south because people just don't have the maturity um, to use the opportunity. Not enough people have the maturity to use the opportunity for an open mic and be responsible and straightforward about the issue you want to talk about. So that's kind of difficult in some ways. So I wrote this little piece, and I should send it to Eduardo, and I'll probably put it in La Portada. But anyway, but here's the thing. What are you willing to give up as a person who's seeing the Canadian Football League, either from your inner fan or your writer, opinion based on knowledge that you've garnered either through osmosis or direct information?
So yeah, and this is something I've
What's
really
priority one? What's the most important thing in the negotiation you don't want to give up?
for me,
Yes.
probably would be. I'd probably say the motion before the snap.
Okay. So for you, the priority is the game itself and the rules
Yes.
applied. Okay. For me, that's the last of my concerns.
Okay.
I totally see it a different way.
Which way? Now, see,
Okay. You're gonna change your mind a little bit, and
yeah.
and I don't mind if you change my mind a little bit.
Okay.
Right? That's why we're having this conversation. Remember
For
what I
sure.
said? I love writing stuff, and I got feedback from the thing I wrote from players as well.
Oh, that's good.
Oh yeah, ex-players as well, and
Even better.
I wish I hadn't had wrote the article and had them see it. I'll explain that later. For now, I will talk about my priority. Maybe because I've gone to so many Grey Cup games, I think the priority should be that the Grey Cup should be played between two Canadian teams in a Canadian city. The Grey Cup.
Okay.
Now, that means that even if we do everything else, right? With the XFL, the rules by their rules, whatever, we can discuss which rules are more important to keep and all that kind of stuff. But for me, the priority is at the end of every season, there be a championship for the Grey Cup between the two best teams in Canada, which means I am not saying we can't have a championship with the XFL. I'm saying the same way the National Hockey League, the NFL, the Major League Baseball, they have their champions of either conference or East or West, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So the Canadian champion, what I want to see, what I don't want to give up, I don't want to give up the opportunity where the best Canadian team plays against the best American team. So to get there, we have to establish who the best Canadian team is. And that person, that team, that organization that wins that championship continues with their name on the Grey Cup, whether it's the Edmonton team for future to be named or any other team, right? On that cup. And then the winner of that will play the winner of the American trophy for their division, the American division. So you got the Canadian division and the American division. And now the American division plays to get a champion, and their best team wins the trophy, whatever they decide to call it. Just like every league, they name these trophies because before they play the championship, every team gets every winner of the conference or East or West or National American League, they get a trophy. We watch them win it. So then they play each other for the championship. That is where I want to start. That's when I sit down at the negotiation table. My priority isn't even the rules. My priority is that very thing right there. Because for me, it is about Canada. It is about the tradition of the Grey Cup. And it's about, for me, you know, it's not the rules that people remember when they leave a game. The only time the rules matter is when we're questioning whether the rules were applied correctly. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, of what import are the rules? Seriously, when it comes to going to the football game. So, that's my first thing. My second thing is the Labor Day games.
Okay.
You know, I want to make sure we keep those. And the good news is, if there is an expansion that includes American teams, what I would like to see, I don't know. I know that they didn't have more than 10 teams. I think they had 8 or 9 teams, right? They didn't have like many more than that, right?
I believe you're right on that one.
Right? They had, I think, 8 or 9 teams. So they could have up to 10 teams, and we have 10 teams. You bring in the expansion team from the Atlantic. Then I keep thinking about building the Canadian experience, and it would be great because BC and Nova Scotia, Halifax, they would be a great Labor Day rival, East against West, the furthest two, and then everybody else has a dance partner. That means on Labor Day weekend, every team could play. And what I'm getting at is I'm looking for a way to make it better at the same time that I don't want to give anything up. So that has to stay. The Labor Day games have to stay. And it has to be the fact that, you know, that happens. You do those two things. You keep those two things. You could change the rules as far as I'm concerned. All of them. I don't care. Doesn't matter to me. 12 men, 11 men. I've been asked about the Canadian players for the sake of negotiation. There are 7 now. I would say 3 or 4, and let's do it for every team. So we have if we could work that out and keep Canadian players playing, because for me, the game of football is on life support right now without the Canadian Football League. And if we negotiate ourselves out of helping Canadian players to play in the Canadian Football League, we will further damage the game of football in Canada. So that would be the next thing I'd want to keep. I'm giving it to you in order of priority.
Okay.
You can jump in now and tell your side of anything. How do you see?
Well, I was going to say, how many more things did you have on your list before I interject?
I can keep going, but the other thing is, you know, well, just you go ahead now, because those are the 3 priorities I have that at least gives me the feeling that we're keeping the Canadian game alive, the Canadian football game alive, so that we don't fail in this association like we did with the National Hockey League. Because now our national game, our winter national game, lacrosse being the summer one, our fans are cheated from ever witnessing a championship in their hometown. 28 years.
Mm-hmm.
And it'll happen again with football. It'll happen with the Grey Cup, because no matter what, like the pandemic and like vaccines, we can't do stuff that good. We just can't. I'm disappointed in Canada.
Money and population does speak a lot, yes, in the States especially.
You know, I'm disappointed. You know, the vaccine rollout, I've been sold a bill of goods. I've been told how great our healthcare system is. Tell me again, David, how great our healthcare system is.
It's so great that I have a friend that actually went to the States and got both her vaccines.
Exactly. I know a lot of people like that too.
Yeah.
So
here's the thing. So I agree with you that among my priorities, the Grey Cup is a top of the pretty much near the top of my list. I was saying, like, if we were looking at negotiations of what would change about the CFL in terms of the actual game played on the field. But if I had to like talk about like the CFL as a whole, the Grey Cup is the most sacred thing about the CFL. It's what makes it Canadian. It's the biggest sporting event in Canada because
Right.
it's it's been proven. It draws the it's Canada's Super Bowl. If we're gonna be make it very plain and simple, it is Canada's Super Bowl. Even and I would even go on to say it's probably even more unique than the Super Bowl because it's not just a celebration for the two teams that are in there. It's a celebration of the entire country. That's what
Absolutely.
makes it unique. Um, my actually what I was wondering is would there be a potential option where I the one thing I really like about the way Europeans do certain things is
Right.
soccer in Europe, you have all these different leagues. You have the Premier League, you have the Italian League, you have the Spanish League, all these
Right.
different leagues. They all play for their championship.
Right.
And then what happens after they've played for their championship? There's another even more prestigious championship out there, especially in Europe, the Champions League. And there's also the
Right.
Europa League. What would you say if I were to suggest keeping even almost similar to even a college football model where you have the best teams in Canada go up against each other.
Right.
The winner of that great though the winner of the best teams. So like let's say it's almost like a playoff where you keep pretty much the same structure of the CFL where the best Canadian teams end up playing for the Grey Cup.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking
And
about.
then there's another trophy. You're not pinning. There's the Grey Cup champ and the XFL champ, but they're
Right.
playing for another trophy. Is that what you're
Okay.
pretty much going for?
Yeah, yeah. No, no, it would be just imagine here, very simple.
Mhm.
Look at the NFL. They have the NFC and the AFC, right?
Yep.
And what I'm saying is instead of the NFC and the AFC, it would be uh, the Canadian division or the Canadian conference, and it would be the American conference or
Yeah.
US conference. And they would each determine who would be a champion. Like I said, the Canadian teams would play for the Grey Cup, the Americans would play for their trophy, and then I have a name for I would call it the challenge, the challenge cup, the World Challenge Cup. I would call it that. And they could get away with calling it that because they would really be more of a world championship than any of the other leagues. Well, except for now basketball and hockey, right? Where the world part of it, is a little more real. And the reason I say we do it this way, because I believe down the road, I've always believed in Randy Ambrosie's CFL 2.0. I've always believed in it. I just not sure whether it's ready to happen now, but just imagine if there was another league, right, that
Mhm.
had that had other teams that were in this same mold like you're talking about. And now there's a league in Europe, right? And then what you're talking about, I'm taking your idea. It's something I've thought about, but now I'm going to verbalize it. So you have a league in Europe, right? And let's say
Mhm.
you even have a league in south of the United States and South America,
In Mexico.
including Mexico, right? And then you have your World Cup of football,
I was gonna go
right?
there. That's where I was
I
gonna
know
go.
you were. I know you were, and I'm sorry I jumped in front of you. So you go. So I just yeah yeah
Because
that would be great.
there's nothing that brings together fans to a game the national pride, whether it's the
Right.
national team or the one thing I've always said that what makes me laugh sometimes when the Toronto Blue Jays play any team in the states, certain fans start the USA chant, which is quite funny because you've got probably more players that are not even American on a lot of these baseball teams. But what it is it's these American fans that are saying we are better than Canada at
Right.
this. It's the same as when the Olympics happened, but on a club level, okay, you're trying to establish the Canadian teams are the better teams, but then the American teams like, oh no, we're the better teams. And you have the South American teams like, oh no, I don't think we're getting our respect. I think I think that draws a lot more personal interest as a country, and that's the sort of thing that kind of gets your fan base to really follow behind, right? Because
Absolutely.
how many Canadian NHL fans are like, well, if these American teams didn't have all these Canadian players, how good they would they actually be, right? And there's always
Yep.
this, Canadian. Although sometimes
The slighting.
we get the civil wars where the Canadian teams don't get the Canadian and other Canadian fan bases cheering for them in the playoffs. That's beyond the point. But what I'm saying is like, this can be similar to what soccer does, because you can definitely have a Canadian champion, you can have an American champion. As you said, you can go south of the border to Mexico and even further down depending on how far the football reaches. And in Europe, there's definitely if they can make it work in terms of the expansion, I think that's where they're leaning towards, because they've said that this is something they want to make a global. This is not just
Absolutely.
North America. They want to make this a
And it's
global
not
thing.
just Randy. It's not just Randy.
No, it is not.
The Rock and Company would, this is to them, I think this is a foothold to the rest of the world. This is something if they team up with the Canadian Football League. And to use your example, and I don't know, because football doesn't do what hockey and baseball has only been doing it recently, where you have your World Cup, right? It's not
Yeah.
anything that's not steeped in
World
history,
Baseball
right?
Classic. Yeah.
It's not steeped in history yet.
No.
And the thing is, when it comes to football, right now there is a World Cup of football. It is the juniors, so it's not unusual to have players of the same country, multiple countries, not just America, not just the United States, but Canada, Japan, Brazil, Mexico, some European countries as well. Italy, I think, has a team. I'm sorry if I can't name them all. I don't want to offend any country.
Yeah.
But the fact remains, more than the U.S. and Canada play football. And more than, I think it's at least 8 or 10 teams that play in the Junior Football World Cup, which Canada has won a few times. Let's keep that in mind as well at that age group. So why not advance from junior to professional and have some sort of thing there? The only problem with football is, and I don't mean to throw cold water on your idea, because I love it. I think that's an idea that I have that's been rolling around in my tiny little pea brain. And that is the fact that football doesn't like playing outside of the league, and the leagues are they're not into, even the All-Star game, isn't a real serious game, right? You'd agree, right?
No. Like the
That's the
All-Star.
thing about football. But you could do it because I support you, and I believe you would get your idea would get the support from the XFL and the CFL. The reason being, the XFL would love to do something that is interesting and different, because they can't afford, they can't beat the NFL dollar for dollar, but maybe they can beat them with hype. The hype of the best Canadian team, all that excitement, the best American team, all that excitement, and then you have the Canadian and the American team. And if it's as exciting as I think it can be, what you're saying could work. Like, they could end up saying, let's have a World Cup of football every 4 years.
This is why the idea of the two leagues merging together, that's the part that I'm not really seeing, because why would
That's
you
why
want to identify as one league when you can kind of say, look, Canada, you get your thing, America, you get your thing. There's not this idea of trying to get too much of we're going to do this the Canadian way, or we're going to do this the American way. I think you're creating a collision course that's just I don't think it's
I'll give
really
you,
going.
unfortunately, I'm old and I can remember.
Mhm.
The NFC and the AFC were not the NFC and the AFC. One was the American Football League. The other one was the National Football League. They were separate completely. Then they started playing. Then they got together and started playing a few interleague games, right?
Yeah.
Baseball was the National League and the American League. They both played under the same flag, the Major League Baseball, right? They ended up being there, right? Hockey with the World Hockey Association and the NHL. This is not anything unusual.
No.
So what you're doing is you're just basically saying, okay, I agree with you. What you're saying is eventually you have to become one league. That's the way it works. There's always one super league, right? But
Mhm.
the fact is, there could be a point in time, which has happened before, where you have the Canadian Football League and of course the XFL get together. They don't have to necessarily merge. They can be loosely fitting together and say, so we want to work together, right? So we have to figure out the common ground.
Yeah.
That's why I picked the Canadian model that I'm trying to create and
Mhm.
sell to people. And I'm avoiding concerns of the game itself, how it's played. Because ultimately, for your plan to work, you must admit playing different games and then saying, okay, next year, it's not like baseball
I
and the designated hitter. It's just a designated hitter. The game isn't much different, right?
What I will say is, what I agree. No, I say like when people say, "Oh, 1 year we'll play Canadian rules, 1 year we'll play American rules." I
Yeah.
hate that
That's
because
and the rules are too different,
the
man.
rules are too different, and you're gonna like casual fans gonna be like, "Okay, which football are they actually gonna be playing this year?"
Right.
I think actually would work. And people say, "Well, you can't keep the fields the same." I said, "Well, there's
So
something
what?
called I said there's something called Olympic hockey."
Yep.
And NHL players, when they go and play in the Olympics, they got to adapt. Olympic, teams that play in international hockey have to come to the NHL and NHL size rinks and adapt. I think that's something that, hey, if the CFL wants to keep bigger fields for when they play, let them do it. If the XFL
When
teams
they're
want
at
to keep
home.
when
When
they're
they're
at
at
home,
home.
yeah, if they want to keep their field size, let them. Or they might want to adapt a different field size. It's up to them. I
A
don't think
hybrid.
that a hybrid. Definitely, I think things like that can stay the same. There's been this talk about how, oh, if you get rid of the Canadian rules and you get rid of the Canadian game. And I said, well, yes and no. Yeah, sure. There's things that distinguish the Canadian game. I definitely agree on that. But what makes anything Canadian is the Canadian flavor that's added to it. And it's not just the rules, it's the players, it's the fans, it's the trophy, it's all those things. And I think people are they're like, oh, they're just trying to diminish our game and take it away. So no, we want to make sure that the game is as appealing to a larger audience and not just focusing on a singular or a certain group that are diehard and want to keep it alive. They want to. This is all about making sure that all of Canada wants to enjoy this game and not just the select few. And that's, I think, been the biggest problem right now.
Here's what I say about the Canadian rules and we have seen in life, that we see in life, we see changes that happen that we don't like, that we wish wouldn't happen in the game itself. The
Yes.
rules. The rules change. The Toronto Argonauts play at BMO Field. BMO Field, the field's not the same as
No.
the other stadiums. It's different. So we talk about it when we first played. We talk about it when the players first played. We talk about it you know, when we think it means something. We ask the questions, we get the answers, and we realize it really doesn't mean a thing. It doesn't mean a thing because both teams play on the same field. To your point and to your idea of keeping the size of the stadium or the playing field, I don't have a problem with that. I think that could sell. I don't think that's a bad idea. I just think, 1 yard off the ball, the motion thing, a lot of American football players understand it because they played that way in college. So for me to go on the other side where I told you what my priorities were, because what matters to me is the football experience for the fans, for the Canadians, for how we enjoy and how we celebrate the game. I
Yeah.
don't want that to change
No.
because I think we do a good job. I mean, we have a Grey Cup and everybody's represented at the Grey Cup. Absolutely, the two teams that make it there have more fans, more supporters. That goes without saying. But it doesn't get rid of all the other fans. The other fans still come. You have the same group of people going to, I know, I've seen it, and I love it. I think it's great. And I think that's something that we shouldn't give up. So changing the rules, whatever they can compromise with. Using your example, you keep that field, and then what's to stop them from keeping rules that the American players and American fans understand because they're similar to college football, just like overtime, right? You wouldn't have to change the overtime because there are American football fans who follow college football.
Yeah.
They'd understand that's not something that needs to change. I'm not saying that we give up everything to the American side of the equation. What I'm saying is I don't want to lose the Grey Cup game between two Canadian teams in a Canadian city. I don't want to lose that. And there are lots of trophies out there in every league. It's not like there's just the one trophy, like I said. So let's keep ours. They can invent theirs, and then we'll go for the one that we want to win, for the champion overall, right?
Yeah, it would definitely. And on top of that, I mean, I always bring it back to college football. How many different trophies do each college football team win until they reach the national championship game?
Absolutely.
You know, the Rose Bowl. My college football trophy names have
the
changed.
Sugar Bowl, the Aloha Bowl, the Cotton Bowl.
Then all of them that have sponsorship
Rose
attached
Bowl.
to it, by the way. I'm going to also add to that.
Absolutely.
To make money. But what I will say about the whole, appealing to the Americans thing, every football player aspires to play in the NFL. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. But Canadian football players, too, they say that their goal is to reach the NFL because that's where you make the most money. That's where the most eyes
are on you. Can I qualify your statement a little bit?
Sure.
Every Canadian kid that wants to play football, I think, wants to be in the Canadian Football League, and it's a quiet for some, not all, just for some. There's they don't even want to say they want to try and play in the NFL. You know what I'm saying? They talk about playing in the CFL, and in their mind they want to do that. I really believe that too. You know, it isn't just all about playing in the NFL.
I think what I'm trying to get here is if they want to play in the CFL, great, but make it so that the playing in the CFL is a little more desirable in terms of eventually they'll get paid a little bit more because
I'm listening.
We already know that that's one thing that kind of dissuades some people from playing in Canada because of the pay. So part of the reason too is now you've got Canadian kids who are going to U.S. colleges because that's the best way to get to the NFL. Why are we handicapping where the potential playing opportunities are for Canadian kids? Why don't we try to make sure that the Canadian kids can see the different avenues? They're not just saying, oh, if I play only in the Canadian college, I can only play in the CFL because NFL teams won't recognize the games that's played in Canadian colleges. Although that is changing a little bit. Certain positions, not every position. If you're seeing a lot of these Canadian kids are getting picked up in the NFL, especially on the offensive side, they're getting picked out of American colleges, not out of Canadian colleges. I just think that there can be some ways to make sure that if we're making the game more attractive to a broader audience, then you need to consider what that broader audience wants to watch, what the kids that want to play football, what brand of football do they want to play, right? If I'm a Canadian kid and I'm aspiring to make football a career, wouldn't my options be better if I've played rules that can align with both, CFL and the NFL? Wouldn't that open up more career opportunities for me? I think, and then look, if then they can say, football is not just something they play, but it's something they aspire to want to play, as a career, and as it gets them more involved in the game as well.
And you know what? And I totally agree with you as far as some of the changes wouldn't hurt, and they wouldn't. Sometimes we're so bogged down by the fear of change, and Canadian Football League fans don't want to be the NFL. They don't want from the ones that when I posted this thing, lots of different people with different opinions. And it wasn't really, There really wasn't one group that spoke louder than the other. There's the group that doesn't want any change. There's the group that doesn't want to lose the game and realizes that they might have to change the game. So, and then there are the players whom I spoke to and former players who are not happy with the Canadian Football League. They're not in a good place with the Canadian Football League. This pandemic has really kicked the league in the pants, and the league, unfortunately, does not have the same kind of ability that the other leagues in the other sports, and including the NFL, that they don't have the wherewithal to do what the players want them to do. The other grievances that the players have been exacerbated by this event, this situation. They don't get paid enough. They don't think they do. I think you and I agree they don't. And I guarantee you, some of the owners know they don't pay the players enough. Now, do we want to be malicious and talk about, are the owners taking advantage of the players? Of course you can look at it that way. You can look at things so many ways. Just turn it around a little bit and you can spin anything. Nowadays, if people don't know that yet, that's the way life is. We're all, we're silos. Everybody's got their agenda, and that's the agenda they promote or hear or want to hear. Yeah. But what I want to hear before we run out of time is the fact that this league survives, that there's football in Canada. There's a reason for what you said, and I'm pointing, and it's impolite, but I'm going to point at you. You're 100% right that kids need a reason to play the game. If there's no reason for a Canadian kid to play the game, because every kid that plays every sport, I don't care what sport it is, they dream about hitting the home run in the World Series, making the big catch or the big throw in the Super Bowl, scoring this overtime seventh game goal in the Stanley Cup, and even when it comes to playing soccer, they want to win the World Cup or they want to win the MLS championship. That's what they talk about out loud with their friends, and that's what they say in their head. Can't kill that.
No, you can't. And how many kids may grow up watching the CFL and get made fun of for watching the CFL or get we don't want that. We want all the kids to say, "Hey, you watched I watched the game." You want them to actually enjoy being a fan and not think of, "Oh, if I watch the CFL, what are my friends going to think?" Or, "Oh, I play Canadian Football League rules. What are people going to think of me?" That should never ever be a thought process of any fan of any league or any team. You can make fun of a team for how they perform on the field, but how the game is played should never be something that that should never dissuade someone from becoming a fan of a league.
Well, look, football's all about throwing the ball, catching the ball, and stopping the guy from throwing it and stopping the guy from catching it, and running with the ball as fast as you can to where everybody knows you want to go, and then the challenge of stopping them. There are the beauty of the game of football. All right, as brutal as people like to portray it, it is a game that anybody, any size, can play, and that's something to be said. You know what I mean? There's no inherent advantage on body type. You and I have seen some really good players. We've sat in the locker room and looked down at them, and we've looked up at them. Yeah. And we've tried looking around them. So, that's the one thing football gives and brings.
For sure. And, opportunity. We want them to have the best opportunity.
You get the last 30 seconds.
This is all just to say we just want the players to have the best opportunity. We want fans to have the best game possible. And right now we just want football. I'm glad I'm an NFL fan, because if I wasn't an NFL fan, I wouldn't have had football over the last year and a half.
There you go.
But I also want CFL football. I want something that I can be something that I cover. I cover on every year. I haven't been able to write about actual games in a really long time, and that's painful. It really does hurt.
We'll leave it there. He's David Morassutti. I'm Candid Frank. Thank you for watching CFL Talk, seen live Mondays at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This show can also be heard on the Spanglish World Radio Network. For CFL Talk news, entertainment, and other sports programming we offer, please check out SpanglishWorld.ca. Spanglish World. Watch it, hear it, read it, download it, and live it. Thank you for watching. I'm Candid Frank. He's David Morassutti. Thank you for watching.